Okay. We move on. This is a very important point, and I'm not sure how many of us are aware of it. Now, Section 54 of the Criminal Law, open brackets, Sexual Offences and Related Matters Act, close brackets, Amendment Act 32 of 2007. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to explain what it actually means in our practical terms. Section 54 is an obligation to report the commission of sexual offences against children or persons who are mentally disabled. 1A. A person who has knowledge that a sexual offence has been committed against a child must report such knowledge immediately to a police official. B. A person who fails to report such knowledge as contemplated in paragraph A is guilty of an offence and is liable of conviction to a fine or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 5 years, or to both a fine and a person who has knowledge, reasonable belief, or suspicion that a sexual offence has been committed against a person who is mentally disabled, but must report such knowledge, reasonable belief, or suspicion immediately to a police official. B. A person who fails to report such knowledge, reasonable belief, or suspicion as contemplated in paragraphs A above is guilty of an offence and is liable on conviction to a fine or imprisonment to a period not exceeding 5 years, or both a fine and such imprisonment. C. A person who in good faith reports such reasonable belief or suspicion shall not be liable to any civil or criminal proceedings by reason of making such a report. Okay. So, this deals specifically with sexual offences. So, we used to have the old law before, which would just make it liable on teachers and in both environments, where you have your secular schooling and religious schooling. Now, the law has gone much wider. But I'm just trying to give the examples and try to explain what the situation is. It's done respectfully for everybody that's here. So, just a basic example. You're teaching in a Maktab, everybody's under 18, and Mariam comes to you. Let's say she's 8, 10, 11 years old. And Mariam says to you, Appa, I want to speak to you after Adressa. Fine. She says, Appa, Daddy's been touching me between my legs. There and then, you can sit, you can listen to the whole story, give her the whole opportunity to explain to you. But on those words, Daddy's been touching me, let's say, Daddy's been touching me between my legs. Whether it's over the kurta, on the panties, or on the vagina itself. That report, Daddy, adult. Mariam, 10. Places you, it says a person. Now, I always look at your appas and that, and the Molanas, because it can be a boy as well, that you are taken sometime in that trust position. You are in that trust position. In some households, you're in the motherly position, you're in the fatherly position. And the child will then place their trust in you because you're teaching them what the Quran says, what our Sunnah says, this is our way of life. And that is why they trust you so much. If Maryam comes to you with that report, under this section, you are obliged to phone SAPS. You are obliged to phone SAPS. Unfortunately, it can even be as the Imam of the Masjid. If the youth comes to you, you spoke about it. Let's say you spoke about gender-based violence in the Masjid, the misconception of Islam and gender-based violence. And you talk about it and you say this is not acceptable in that. Now, this is even far-reaching. What do you do in a situation, and you're the Imam of the Masjid, and Ridwan comes. Ridwan is 16, 17 years old, and he says to you, Maulana, I'm sitting with a problem. I can't take it anymore. Sheikh, I can't take it anymore. My father hits my mother to a pulp every night. This is even far reaching into that. You have to report it. Back to the situation of Mariam reporting it to one of the appas. If appa doesn't do anything, appa says, ek wil nie betrokke raak, I don't want to get involved, this is family issues, it's got far-reaching consequences, I don't want to go to court, and that's the option you can take. But there's consequences. For it. Now, Mariam eventually says, and let's say Appa done nothing about it. She just kept quiet. She kept it to herself. Now it eventually comes out. Daddy is arrested, and 10 to 1 it comes out. And I'll give you circumstances how. Let's say it came out by a teacher Cindy at school. And what happens in most circumstances is, remember, a child of 10, her body is not ready for sexual things to take place in that. Now Mariam goes to school and she starts scratching between her legs. Appa saw that happening, for example, but she knows possibly where it comes from, so she tries to stay away from it. But teacher Cindy at school is going to say, Mariam, come. What's going on? Why are you scratching the whole time? And then she says, Daddy's been doing A, B, C, D to me. Putting his finger there, for example. Now she reports it. So Mariam was taken in by, should be a special police officer who can take a statement from a child. And then the police officer is going to ask, who have you told about it? Because the Sexual Offences Act takes corroboration from what they call a first report. The first person you reported to gives cognizance and corroborates what you have reported, which gives credence to your evidence. Okay? And then the policeman must say, who have you told about it? And she says, I told my Appa. Now she told Appa 6 months ago. Appa doesn't make a report. The policeman must then open up a docket against Appa under Section 54, because Appa failed in her duty to report it to SAPS. And when the government brought this in, they brought in a protection for you as well. That last line where it says, a person who in good faith reports such reasonable belief or suspicion shall not be liable to any civil or criminal proceedings by reason of making such report. So there's your safeguard in saying that you don't want to get involved. I would rather make the report because that is the safeguard that you have under the section, instead of keeping quiet. That section safeguards you. But if you don't make the report, you can be sentenced to a term of imprisonment for a period not exceeding 5 years and or a fine. And our courts, especially when it comes to offences committed against children or persons and mentally disabled persons, are very heavy. I can almost promise you're going to get a term of direct imprisonment. Coupled with a fine, both, or a term of imprisonment. Your case is going to be heard in the regional court because it's 5 years and more. So it has serious consequences. Just on that issue, any questions? Does it make sense? Sheikh, you can ask. Anyone? Sheikh Salam too?
No, it's very for especially madrasa teachers.
Yes.
To make that report. Because normally, in the madrasa situation, it's like we are connected with the parents. And sometimes they happen to be the culprits. And now the whole thing, fall
You're
off.
gonna the whole relationship turns sour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really,
It is a difficult.
Really encourage.
Your obligation, with all due respect, if you look at Section 28 of the Constitution, is in the best interest of the child. So, my advice to you is, you have to call. You can go to your local police station, but it would better be to call the Child Protection Services of SAPS. They've got a special unit that deals with children and offences that are committed against children. So you are faced in and placed in that difficult position where you have to now take that role, and what this section 54 of the Amendment Act, the onus it plays upon you is to act in the best interest of the child. So that relationship 10 to 1 is going to go sour, but you remember, you are just acting on behalf of the child, making the report. Once you alerted the officials and the authorities, they take it over from there. Yes, you are the first report to the case because she reported to you first, for example, but you have to give it a kick-off. Remember, you've got that bottom section over there that is... Yes, you'll be called to court. You'll be called to court. You'll be called to court. You will be called to court, unfortunately. And then you'll have to explain, I'm the madrasa teacher, I'm the imam of the masjid. This is the role that I play. And this is why I'm aware of this section. Why I acted the way I did. Even if the father or the mother is found not guilty, they can't come back and say, I'm suing Sheikh Salamtu for R1 million because he made a false case against me. No ways. There you've got your protection. Okay? I think we're going to keep Sheikh's questions for last, otherwise we won't finish the slideshow. Any other questions? Just on that, you might not think it's serious, for example. Just know that the definition of rape has changed. Let me just explain to you, just to give you a... Before, in the old law, it was instrument specific. It has to be the penetration of a penis of the vagina to have been defined as rape. Now, it's much wider. So if Maryam comes and she says, Daddy put his finger in my vagina, it's rape. Any form of penetration is rape. Daddy put his penis in my mouth, it's rape. So it is the penetration of any orifice of one person, which is also a rape. As we know the whole situation, it's not gender specific. We might not agree with everything over there, but the South African law says it's not gender specific. So if Muhammad, what's the name we use? Muhammad Arif comes and says, Daddy put his finger in my... It's also a rape. You might think, he just put his finger there. Let me not get so involved in this, or I don't want to get... You're obliged under the circumstances to report the situation. Okay? So I just went to the position prior to Section 54. The position prior to the effect of Section 54 of the Criminal Law, Sexual Offences and Related Matters Amendment Act 32 of 2007. Prior the effect of the Criminal Law Amendment Act, the duty to report was governed by the different piece of legislation which imposed a duty on specific category of persons such as doctors, teachers, social workers and religious leaders. Now they haven't limited to that, they've just made it open. There was a duty on the regular man on the street to report. There was no duty of the regular man on the street to report. So that ability where you would say now, no, I'm only Uncle Akil, I'm not a madrasa teacher, I'm not. Let's say, for example, Uncle Akil is picking up his grandchildren from the madrasa. And he picks up 2 granddaughters and Maryam travels with him. And Maryam then takes confidence in Uncle Akil and he says, and he's also placed under that duty to report the circumstances. And that is why they opened it up and left it vast, because then Uncle Akil's defense of saying, no, but I'm not a teacher, I'm not a religious leader, he can't hide behind that. The Criminal Law, Sexual Offences and Related Matter Act of 32 now places the duty on everyone. Okay. Just in those circumstances of Section 54 as well, I just want to go a bit deeper, because you're going to be faced with different scenarios. We are sitting with a different generation. Almost scared to say it, but I'm going to say it, where sexual offences are of a sick nature that we find. I think that's the only way Islamically to define it, Sheikh. So, what do you do? Say Maryam is attending madrasa, and madrasa, and Mariam says to you, me and Uncle Farid were sitting watching TV, and Uncle Farid then put on naked people. And Uncle Farid, we established that it's pornography. You are obliged to report that as well. To expose or force any other person, whether a child or an adult, any pornography or form of pornography is an offense. So that you will also, because it leads to so much. Okay? Just for the benefit of everybody, if somebody sends you a pornographic clip, delete it, please. If you view it and you delete it, end of story, good. If you forward, not good, Sheikh, right? But I'm just saying, I'm trying, what the point I'm getting to is, stop it somewhere, yeah. Don't, the minute you press forward or you press send, you are committing an offense under the Sexual Offences and the Related Matters Act by reproducing, forwarding, with Poppy Act, such pornographic material. Please, please. And you can say to yourself, oh, it's WhatsApp, we're not going to pick it up. It's fine, WhatsApp, you're going to pick it up. There are actually people out in crime intelligence in SAPS that have a computer program that once you start going on pornography sites, they pick up your IP address and they start watching you. And they pick up there, and then all of a sudden, I think we had 2 cases from Jeffreys Bay over here, I think two white gentlemen, and he's carrying on his computer, going pornography sites, and there, all of a sudden, SAPS comes up and says, Mr. van Bochenrode, we are arresting you. The viewing of child pornography is also an offense itself. So the Child Justice Act is quite wide in that. Another circumstances as a religious leader or madrasa teacher that you need to look out for is that Mariam comes and she says, oh, Appa, you know, after madrasa, I'm going to Uncle Farid's house. Uncle Farid, when I get to his house, give me sweets, give me chocolates and that. And you know what? It only cost me a kiss. And it only cost me to touch his cheek or rub his beard for him. That could be sexual grooming, where the adult is actually training the child to do acts that an adult would. That is also a sexual offense. So you think to yourself, no, I don't need to report this, it's fine. You know, it's just a nice uncle, and he's just giving a kiss. I would advise you, monitor the situation. In the position that you are in, ask again, what have you done with Uncle Farid? Because it starts with a small kiss, and you're showing a mainstream program on TV where adults kiss, not ever. The sexual deviant is actually training the child to think like an adult, so that when he progresses to actual sexual intercourse, the child believes what I am doing is not wrong. And that is sexual grooming in itself. Look out for that, because that is also an offense that needs to be reported. Okay? The same for boys.